The laugh came before the insult. Loud, sharp, public. It burst through the chandelier-lit hall like shattered glass, cutting through the violin music and polite applause. Heads turned. Conversations paused mid-sentence. Cameras lifted instinctively, as if trained for moments like this. Near the edge of the room, a young man in a plain service uniform froze with a silver tray in his hands. He didn't look up. The laugh belonged to the host. He stood beneath the brightest light in the room. Tall and relaxed, champagne flute held between two fingers. Diamond ring catching the glow. This was his night, his mansion, his guests, his rules. People called him generous, powerful, and touchable. Did you hear that? The millionaire said loudly, smiling as he scanned the crowd. He thinks the odds are wrong. A ripple of amusement spread across the room. The servers stiffened. One of them whispered, "Don't react," but it was too late. The millionaire's eyes had already locked onto the young man. "You," he said, pointing casually, like calling for another drink. "Come here." The tray trembled, just slightly, before steadying again. The young man took one careful step forward. His shoulders stayed straight, his face unreadable. No fear, no defiance, just control. "Yes, sir?" he said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. That alone confused a few people. The millionaire tilted his head, pretending curiosity. "You were saying something about strategy, about probability," he chuckled. Sounded confident. The crowd leaned in. The young man swallowed once. "I only meant that sometimes people overestimate brute force," he said, "and underestimate patience." A pause, then laughter. Louder this time. "Oh, I love this," the millionaire said, clapping slowly. "Wisdom from the help." Someone snorted. Someone else whispered, "This should be good." The young man's fingers tightened around the tray. Knuckles pale for a second, then relaxed. "I should get back to work," he said quietly, taking a small step backward. But the millionaire wasn't done. "Nonsense." He lifted his hand, and the music softened. Every movement he made demanded attention and received it. "Tell me," he continued, walking closer, "do you play chess?" A flash of something crossed the young man's eyes. Not pride, not fear. Recognition. Double quotes. "Sometimes," he answered. That single word ignited the room. "Sometimes?" The millionaire laughed. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a mystery tonight." He gestured toward the far end of the hall, where a polished chessboard sat on a velvet table, surrounded by gold-trimmed chairs. "Did you know I sponsor international tournaments? Grandmasters beg for a seat across from me." Whispers spread. Phones tilted higher. The young man shook his head gently. "I'm sure they do," he said, "but I'm working." "Oh, don't be shy," the millionaire replied sweetly. "This is charity entertainment." His smile sharpened. "Or are you afraid?" The word landed harder than the laughter. The young man felt it. The eyes, the heat of the room, the narrowing space behind him. He glanced down instinctively, then caught himself. Straightened. "No," he said. "That isn't it." "Then what is it?" He hesitated. Not because he lacked an answer, but because any answer would invite more. "I don't want attention," he said finally. A few guests exchanged looks. One woman lowered her glass. A young boy near the front watched him closely, eyes wide, hopeful in a way adults forgot how to be. The millionaire grinned. "Attention," he said, spreading his arms, "is already here." He leaned closer, voice dropping just enough to sting. "If you lose, it's a joke. If you win," he shrugged, "a miracle. Either way, we're entertained." The young man looked at the chessboard. Then at the floor. Then back up. One breath, slow, measured. "I'll play," he said. One game. The room erupted. Applause, laughter, disbelief. The millionaire snapped his fingers. "Set it a chair." Scraped the marble floor. The chessboard gleamed under the lights as the millionaire sat confidently and picked up a pawn. He slammed it down on the board. Hard. The sound echoed. No one noticed the way the young man's breathing didn't change at all. The room waited for him to laugh it off. He didn't. The applause faded into a restless murmur as people realized the servant hadn't moved. He stood beside the chess table now, hands resting calmly at his sides, eyes on the board, not in awe, not in fear, Just reading it. The millionaire leaned back in his chair, stretching like a man settling into a show already won. Relax, he said, waving his hand. I'm not asking for a miracle. Just a game. You said you play sometimes, right? A few guests chuckled. Someone raised a phone higher for a better angle. The young man shook his head slightly. Sir, I really should go, he said. His tone stayed respectful, controlled. Someone else can play. That refusal, quiet and polite, landed wrong. The millionaire's smile thinned. Funny, he replied. Most people would kill for a seat right there. He tapped the empty chair across from him. Unless you're worried. I'm not worried, the young man said. Then sit. The word wasn't loud, but it cut sharper than shouting. The crowd shifted closer, forming a loose circle. There was no path back now, only forward or humiliation in retreat. A woman whispered, is he really going to refuse? Another voice answered, he'd better not. That would be embarrassing. The young man glanced toward the exit just once, then away. I don't want this, he said honestly. The millionaire laughed. No one ever does. Before they lose, more laughter. He reached into his jacket casually and pulled out a thick envelope, fanning it like a magician. 2,000, he said. Cash, for your trouble, gasps, murmurs. The young man didn't look at the envelope. I'm not here for money, he said. That quiet answer unsettled a few people. The millionaire's jaw tightened. Just for a beat. Then he smiled wider, brighter, dangerous. All right, he nodded. Not money, he gestured to the cameras around them. Exposure, a story. Who knows, someone in this room might hire you to think for them. He leaned forward. Unless you're scared to prove that brain. The word again. Scared. A hush fell. The young man felt it then, the pressure not on his pride, but on his dignity. The insult wasn't about chess anymore. It was about his place in the room. Behind the crowd, a young boy tugged his father's sleeve. Is he going to play? He whispered. The underdog heard him. Something shifted, not in his face, but in his posture. His shoulders set differently. His hands unclenched. He inhaled slowly. Just one condition, he said. The millionaire raised an eyebrow, amused. Conditions? Now this is interesting. No commentary, the young man continued. While we play, a few people laughed nervously. You don't want advice? The millionaire smirked. I don't want noise, he replied. Silence followed that line. Real silence. After a moment, the millionaire shrugged. Fine, I'll even take it easy on you. He motioned to the chair again. Sit. The young man hesitated, just long enough for the tension to stretch, then pulled the chair out and sat down. The room tightened around them. Someone poured another drink. The sound felt too loud. White or black? The millionaire asked, already reaching for white. White suits you, the young man said calmly. The millionaire laughed. Confident now? He moved first. A pawn slammed forward. Your move, the millionaire said, tapping the clock harder than necessary. The young man studied the board, not nervously, not slowly, but with sudden, quiet focus. The kind that made people stop whispering without knowing why. He reached out. His fingers were steady. Pawn to e4. A simple move. To simple. A man near the back frowned. The millionaire smirked. Textbook, but the young man didn't react. He was already 10 moves ahead. No one there knew it yet, but the joke had officially stopped being funny. The board was set, but the real game had started years earlier. As the millionaire leaned back confidently, twirling his champagne glass, the young man kept his eyes on the board. 64 squares, 32 pieces, endless memories. The white pawn rested on e4. Simple, classic. Safe. The millionaire answered instantly, almost theatrically. c5, he announced. Sicilian defense. A few guests nodded in approval. Someone whispered, he knows his openings. The young man didn't respond to the comment. He barely responded to the sound. His hand moved, placing a knight with quiet precision, and just like that the noise of the room faded. Not suddenly, slowly, like a door being closed somewhere deep inside him. A cracked ceiling fan spun above a narrow room, rattling like it might fall at any moment. The boy lay on the floor, head resting on his school bag, eyes fixed on the light bulb flickering overhead. There was no chessboard, only imagination. On the concrete floor, Faint chalk marks formed a grid, uneven, crooked, but good enough. His fingers moved across invisible squares. His father stood by the doorway, tired eyes watching silently. He had the hands of a man who had worked his whole life for very little. "What are you doing?" the man finally asked, thinking. The boy replied softly. The father frowned. "Thinking won't feed you." The boy didn't answer. He never did. Later that night, while the city slept, the boy replayed games in his head. Not random ones, famous ones he'd memorized from borrowed library books. A pawn's sacrifice here, a quiet defense there. Every move felt like control, something he didn't have anywhere else. Back in the present, the millionaire chuckled as he pushed another piece forward. "You're pretty calm," he said. "Most people shake by now." The young man didn't look up. "I've had practice." That single line made a woman near the board tilt her head. "Practice? Where?" The millionaire laughed it off. "Let's see how long that lasts." He attacked aggressively, flashy, confident. Pieces clacked loudly against the board. He wanted the room to hear every move. The young man responded differently. No sound, no wasted motion. Each piece landed as if it already belonged there. A school hallway. Peeling paint. A chess club flyer taped crookedly to a wall. The boy had stopped. "Read it twice. Tournaments?" he asked the teacher quietly. The teacher glanced at his worn shoes, his frayed uniform, hesitated. "Entry fees," she said. "You probably shouldn't. I'll clean the room after class," the boy offered. "For free." That was the first time someone agreed. That was the first time he beat someone who looked shocked to lose. Word spread fast. Too fast. By the second tournament, his father stopped him at the door. "You win games," the man said firmly. "But life doesn't care. Stop chasing useless dreams." The boy nodded. He always nodded. And then he waited. Until everyone slept, a bishop slid into place. The young man blinked once. Something subtle had changed. The millionaire felt it before he understood it. His smile faded just a little. His fingers hovered over a piece longer than before. The crowd leaned closer. "Is it me?" someone whispered. "Or is this getting serious?" At the edge of the circle, a tall man in a dark suit, quiet until now, stopped scrolling on his phone. His eyes fixed on the board, his brows furrowed. That night move earlier, that restraint. It wasn't beginner's luck. The young man rested back slightly in his chair, not relaxed. Grounded. He remembered the last real game he played before life pulled him away. A long night, a ticking clock, a crowd he wasn't supposed to be in, and the moment he won, then walked away. "Your move," he said calmly. The millionaire stared at the board. For the first time all night, he didn't speak right away. He looked up, searching the young man's face, trying to read him, finding nothing. Silence stretched somewhere in the room. A glassy linked. And in that quiet space, a dangerous thought entered the millionaire's mind for the first time. Asterisk, what if this wasn't a joke? Asterisk, he made his move, sharper now, less playful. The young man didn't hesitate. As his piece landed, the man in the dark suit straightened slightly. His voice was low, almost to himself. Interesting. The young man didn't hear him, but the board did. And it was starting to tell a very different story. The millionaire laughed after his next move. He wouldn't laugh again the same. "Wait, so," he said casually, sliding his rook forward with a sharp tap. "Where exactly did you learn to play like this? Internet videos?" A few people chuckled. Automatically. The young man didn't respond. His eyes stayed on the board, following lines only he seemed to see. Not aggressively, patiently, as if the game had slowed down just for him. He reached forward and placed his piece. Click. Simple, clean. The millionaire's smile twitched, barely noticeable. He adjusted his cufflinks, diamonds catching the light. He leaned closer, studying the board again longer than before. He murmured. "Trying something clever?" No answer. The crowd noticed the silence now. How little space the young man took up. How he never explained, never reacted. Someone whispered, "He doesn't even look nervous." Another replied, quieter. "That's what scares me." The millionaire waved it off. "Beginner's calm," he said, louder than necessary. "It'll crack." He played quickly again. Too quickly. Another aggressive push, designed to look strong rather than be strong. His fingers drummed on the table afterward, impatient. That's pressure, he announced. You feel it yet? The young man looked up for the first time. Pressure, he said evenly. Comes later. A few heads turned. That wasn't defiance. It was timing. The millionaire scoffed and took a sip of champagne. But his eyes flicked back to the board again and stayed there. The position had changed. Not obviously, not dramatically, but certain lanes were closing. Certain pieces were trapped in their own confidence, blocking each other like overconfident soldiers crowding a narrow bridge. The young man sacrificed a pawn, a quiet move to quiet. Did he just blunder? Someone muttered. The millionaire smiled again, relieved this time. Ah, there it is. He leaned back, pleased. Everyone relax. He captured the pawn instantly, almost eagerly. The young man nodded once, as if confirming something to himself. Across the circle, the tall man in the dark suit leaned forward. His fingers stopped mid-scroll. That sacrifice, he said under his breath, wasn't a mistake. A woman beside him frowned. How can you tell? Because he didn't flinch. Back at the board, the millionaire was laughing again loosely. With performance, bold idea, he said. Wrong timing. He attacked again. Another loud clack. Another confident reach. The young man responded with a knight move, smooth, precise. The knight didn't charge. It waited. The room felt smaller. The millionaire's foot tapped. Once, twice. He stopped himself, smiled, and glanced up at the crowd. All part of the show, he said quickly. You see this? This is how amateurs lure themselves into thinking they control the board. No one laughed. Someone shifted uncomfortably. A glass was set down. The young man shifted his gaze not to the crowd, not to the millionaire, but to the clock. Plenty of time. The millionaire made another move, slower now. The confidence in his shoulders just slightly reduced. He leaned closer than the table required. He frowned. That's odd. He muttered. The word carried. What? A guest asked. Nothing. The millionaire replied quickly. Just recalculating. Across from him, the young man folded his hands loosely in his lap. Calm breathing. Still posture. The board spoke louder than words now. Pieces that had looked powerful minutes ago suddenly had no room to move. Attacking lines ran straight into silent defenses. Every push forward seemed to invite something unseen. The millionaire finally stopped narrating his moves. He stared. Seconds passed. Then longer. Eyes shifted toward him. The young man waited. Finally, the millionaire moved. The response came instantly. To instantly. That did it. The tall man in the dark suit straightened fully now. No doubt left in his eyes. That's not instinct, he said quietly. That's preparation. The millionaire looked up sharply, annoyed. Excuse me? But the damage was done. The crowd had seen it. The rhythm was gone. The game was no longer being played for. Entertainment. It was unfolding. The young man leaned forward slightly and made his move. Not loud, not fast, but final in its intention. The millionaire stared at the bored. His smile didn't return. For the first time that evening, he whispered, not to the room, but to himself. Wait, he board was no longer open. Something had snapped shut, and everyone could feel it. The night moved. Not dramatically. Not forcefully. It slid into place with the quiet certainty of something that had always been meant to be there. The sound click was soft, but the effect wasn't. The millionaire leaned forward so suddenly his chair legs scraped the marble floor. His eyes darted across the board, then back again, retracing lines that hadn't existed in his mind just moments earlier. The room felt the shift before it understood it. A man near the champagne table slowly lowered his glass. Another guest stepped closer, then stopped, as if afraid to disturb the board with breath alone. The millionaire chuckled once too late. Nice threat, he said, though his voice had lost its polish. But you're overextended. The young man didn't reply. He wasn't watching the millionaire anymore. He was watching the position. The millionaire reached for a piece, pulled his hand back, then reached again. His fingers hovered. His confident rhythm slam, sip, smile was gone now, replaced by hesitation. Someone whispered, he's stuck, isn't he? Another voice answered softly, no. He just hasn't seen it yet. The millionaire finally played, capturing a piece with a quick motion that felt more defensive than triumphant. There, he said, too loudly. Trap avoided across from him. The young man tilted his head almost imperceptibly as if acknowledging effort. Then came the sacrifice, a deliberate one. He slid his piece forward and left it hanging unguarded. Exposed, offered. The board froze. What? A woman breathed. He's giving that up. The millionaire's eyes lit up in relief. He laughed, this time sharp and quick, like someone grabbing a rope while falling. You see? He announced to the room. That's what pressure does. He captured it instantly. Too instantly, the young man placed his hands flat on his knees. Calm, ready, then he moved again. This move had no sound effects, no commentary, no wasted motion. It didn't attack the king directly. It removed the kings. Future. The realization hit the room in waves. First silence. Then confusion. Then understanding. The tall man in the dark suit stepped forward without realizing he had moved. His eyes were locked on the board now, his expression sharp. Oh, he said quietly. Oh no, the millionaire frowned. What? The man didn't answer immediately. He was tracing lines with his eyes, counting, recalculating. That sacrifice, he said slowly, more to himself than anyone else, was bait. It closed your escape squares. A few guests swallowed hard. The millionaire laughed again, but it sounded brittle. That's a stretch. Is it? The man replied. The millionaire snapped his head toward him. I didn't ask for commentary. The man raised both hands calmly. Then don't ask why every piece you own is now stepping on each other's toes. A murmur rolled through the crowd. The millionaire looked back down and, for the first time truly, the fear crept in. His pieces were tangled, lines blocked, attacks neutralized before they could form. Every aggressive move now opened something worse behind it. He picked up his queen, put it down, picked it up again. Fine, he muttered. Let's simplify. He pushed forward. The response was immediate. A clean, surgical motion. Not flashy. Not cruel. Just final. The millionaire inhaled sharply, leaning back, as if the chair could take pressure off his thoughts. That's impossible, he whispered. The young man finally spoke. It isn't, he said evenly. It's just late. The room felt like it had stopped breathing. Someone's phone slipped slightly in their hand, still recording. The tall man in the suit straightened fully now. His voice carried with quiet authority. You're in trouble, he said to the millionaire. And you walked into it yourself. The millionaire snapped. I said no commentary. But his eyes never left the board. The young man reached out again. This move wasn't aggressive. It was inevitable. Like a door closing gently. The millionaire stared down at the pieces. The board. At a position he could no longer control. His throat tightened. The audience didn't cheer, didn't whisper. They waited. Because they could all feel it now. This wasn't about winning anymore. It was about surviving. The next few moves and the millionaire already knew there weren't many. The word came quietly. Check. It wasn't announced. It wasn't performed. It was simply stated, calm, precise, unavoidable. The millionaire stiffened. For half a second, he didn't react at all, as if his mind had rejected the sound. Then his eyes snapped back to the board. He leaned forward again, scanning wildly now, searching for an exit that had already been sealed. Check. He repeated, louder this time. That's temporary. The young man didn't respond. He never argued facts. The tall man in the dark suit stepped closer, into the circle of light around the table. Now people could see him clearly. Tailored jacket, composed posture, the kind of presence that didn't raise its voice yet still reshaped the room. Not temporary, the man said calmly. Constricted. The millionaire looked up sharply. I told you, relax, the man interrupted, his tone even. Not aggressive, certain. I'm not coaching. I'm observing. A few guests exchanged looks. If this man spoke so freely, he clearly wasn't impressed by the host's money or afraid of it. The millionaire scoffed and turned back to the board. I'm fine, he muttered. I've been checked before. Not like this, the man said. The crowd drew closer. Not out of cruelty, out of gravity. The millionaire moved his king one square, The young man replied instantly. No pause. No glance at the crowd. Another check. The sound this time rippled. Again? Someone whispered. The millionaire straightened. He laughed sharply once. Alright, he said. So he's good. Happy now? No one answered. The tall man folded his arms. I steady on the board. Good isn't the word, he said. Disciplined is. The millionaire looked at him. Meaning what? Meaning he isn't attacking you. The man replied. He's asterisk containing asterisk you. A woman near the back sucked in a breath. The millionaire opened his mouth to snap back, then stopped. His eyes dropped to the board again. He tried to trade. Pieces, simplify, force chaos. The young man declined every attempt. Each refusal tightened the net. The clock ticked loud now. For the first time that evening, the millionaire wiped his palm lightly against his trousers. You're playing very carefully, he said, trying to regain control. Almost like you've done this before. The young man finally met his gaze. I have, he said. Just those two words, they landed harder than any insult had. Earlier. The tall man nodded once slowly, as if confirming something he already suspected. That restraint, the man said to the room, comes from experience. The millionaire bristled. With respect to asterisk r asterisk you. The man glanced at him briefly. Someone who reviews talent for a living. Silence sharpened. The millionaire's posture stiffened. Right, and you're saying what, exactly? I'm saying, the man replied, voice calm and unmovable, that if this were a rated match, his position would be considered winning. A few guests gasped outright. That's ridiculous, the millionaire snapped. This is a party. It was, the man said. Now it's a demonstration. The millionaire shook his head hard, as if clearing water. He moved again, forced. Rushed. The young man responded. Another check. This one sounded different. The millionaire froze. Staring at the board, he leaned back slowly, chest rising, falling. The chair creaked under his weight. No, he said quietly. There has to be something. The tall man leaned in slightly, pointing not at a piece, but at the space around the king. There's nowhere left to go, he said. The millionaire's eyes flicked wildly. Left. Right. Back. All blocked. He laughed under his breath, a thin sound. You planned this, he said to the young man. The young man's voice didn't rise. I responded, he said simply. The room felt heavier now, like pressure building before a storm. No one cheered. No one moved, because everyone understood what was coming. Next. The millionaire stared at the board. At a game he'd mocked. A man he'd dismissed, and for the first time since this began, his voice came out small. One more move. The young man nodded. And lifted his hand. Even the soft hum of the chandelier seemed to dim. As the young man lifted his hand, he didn't rush. He didn't savor the moment either. He simply reached out and placed his piece on the board. The sound was soft. Final. The millionaire stared at it. Unblinking. Seconds passed, then more. The clock ticked once. Twice. The millionaire's fingers twitched, hovering over his king as if touching it might change something. He counted squares again, desperate now. Left, right, back, forward. Every path was sealed, a wall of quiet decisions made long before this moment. No, he whispered. It wasn't denial. It was disbelief. The tall man in the dark suit spoke, gently but clearly. That's checkmate. The word moved through the room like a pulse, a ripple of stun. Understanding spread across faces that only minutes ago had been amused and careless. The millionaire leaned back slowly. His chair creaked. His confident posture collapsed just enough for everyone to see it. He laughed once, weak, involuntary. You've got to be kidding me, he murmured. The young man didn't say anything. He never rubbed it in. He folded his hands quietly in front of him and waited. Someone near the back lowered their phone, realizing they'd been holding it up too long. A woman covered her mouth. Eyes locked on the board. The millionaire finally exhaled through his nose and shook his head. Again, he said. Said it again. The tall man stepped in, not forcefully, but decisively. There's no again, he said. That was clean. The millionaire looked up sharply. It was a fluke. The man's gaze didn't soften. Flukes don't take 15 moves to prepare. A quiet murmur spread. Not laughter, not praise. Recognition. The millionaire slowly stood. When he turned toward the young man, the difference was clear. He was no longer towering, no longer in control of the room's gravity. "Who are you?" he asked, voice strained. The young man looked at the board one last time. Then he spoke. "My name doesn't matter," he said calmly. "Not here." That answer landed harder than boasting ever could. The tall man nodded once, satisfied. He turned to the guests. "For those wondering," he said, raising his voice just enough, "this level of composure doesn't come from casual play. This is someone who has faced pressure far worse than a spotlight." The millionaire clenched his jaw. "You're saying he's some kind of prodigy?" "I'm saying," the man replied, "you challenged the wrong person." Silence sat heavy again. The millionaire glanced round the room. No one met his eyes, not his investors, not his admirers, not the cameras. They were all watching the young man now. The millionaire swallowed. His voice dropped. "You could have said something." The young man met his gaze. "You didn't ask that. Was it no insult, no anger, no revenge, just truth?" A few people nodded. Unconsciously, the millionaire looked down, then at the board again, as if hoping it might reset itself. It did in single quotes. The young man stood. Chairs shifted quietly to make space. As he stepped back, the tall man reached into his pocket and produced a simple card. He held it out not to the millionaire, but to the young man. "I'd like to speak with you," he said. Privately, the young man accepted the card with a small nod. Around them, applause began, not explosive, not mocking, but slow, respectful. It grew, not loud, real. The millionaire stood there, frozen in the center of his own room. Applause passing round him like he wasn't there anymore. And for the first time that night, he understood what it felt like to be invisible. The applause didn't follow him. It made way for him. As the young man stepped away from the table, the crowd parted instinctively, creating a narrow path through the chandeliers and polished marble. No one reached for him. No one stopped him. Respect doesn't rush. Near the exit, he paused. Not because someone called his name, but because the tall man in the dark suit had caught up to him. Up close, his presence was undeniable, calm, structured, the kind of authority built over years. "Not money. You play like someone who never forgot," the man said quietly. The young man nodded once. "Some things stay." The man held out his hand. "I owe you an apology. I judged you when I shouldn't have." The young man hesitated, then shook it, firm, brief. They stepped aside, out of the camera's reach. "I review excellence," the man continued. "Academic, strategic, military." He studied the young man carefully now. "Your restraint gave you away." The young man exhaled slowly. "It wasn't restraint," he said. "It was necessity." The man narrowed his eyes. "Then tell me." The young man didn't speak right away. He reached up, unbuttoned his uniform jacket, and slipped it off. What the crowd saw next stopped every remaining whisper. Cold, beneath the plain fabric, stitched carefully onto a simple inner lining, were two small metal stars. Not decorative. Not symbolic. Earned. The man's posture shifted instantly. Straight, alert. "Two stars," he said softly. The young man nodded. "I left before the ceremony." "Why?" the man asked. The young man folded the jacket over his arm. "Because my father said rank doesn't matter if it doesn't feed the family." Across the room, the millionaire watched from a distance. He didn't approach, didn't interrupt. He'd never felt shorter in his own house. The man in the suit took a careful breath. "Do you know how rare it is to walk away from that?" "Yes." "Then why come here? Why tonight?" The young man glanced back at the chessboard, at the lights, at the circle of people who had laughed first and clapped last. "I didn't come to prove anything," he said. "I came to work." The man studied him for a long moment, then reached into his pocket again. Not a card this time, but a sealed folder. "There's a program," he said quietly. "Leadership, strategy, national level. It was built for people like you, but it rarely finds them on its own." The young man didn't touch the folder. "Let me earn it," he said. The man smiled. "You just did." Behind them, movement stirred. The millionaire approached slowly, carefully, like someone stepping onto unfamiliar ground. He stopped a few feet away. For a moment, He said nothing. Then, I owe you an apology. The room stilled. I thought intelligence could be bought. The millionaire continued, voice lower than before. Tonight, I learned it can't. The young man met his eyes. Respect works the same way. He replied. The millionaire nodded. Once, deeply, I was wrong. He said, no excuses. No performance. The young man didn't respond. He simply turned back toward the exit. As he stepped outside, cool air met his face. The night was quiet, honest. The noise behind him faded. The doors closed. And for the first time in years, he walked forward not as someone invisible, but as someone finally seen.